Welcome back to the 2-Minute Warning. Back on the topic of the Florida Gators. Last night I reacted to their loss to the Kentucky Wildcats. Today I'm going to further that and react to Dan Mullen's post-game press conference. He really deflected any of the blame from himself. We'll get into that later in the video, but basically today reacting to an interview with Dan Mullen after the game that a lot of Gators fans did not like. Before we get into the video, question of the day. This is an interesting one. Do you guys think the Gators need to move on from Dan Mullen? Comment down below, and at the end of the video, you will hear my opinion. First things first, I think Dan Mullen is facing a lot of, from Gators fans, a lot of anger just immediately for this loss. A lot of Gators fans are mad because our playoff hopes are over, and they're taking it out on Dan Mullen. I do think he deserves more credit than he's being given at the moment. I mean, if you would ask Gators fans coming into this season, who's the best coach in college football, they all would have said Dan Mullen. We love Dan Mullen here at the University of Florida. We love everything he does. At least we did until last night. So a lot of opinions have changed drastically in the matter of 24 hours. And I think that's a little unfair to Dan Mullen. He's done a lot of good things here. He's had success for sure. But as we've all seen, every year we seem to come up short in a certain way. So yes, there's certainly some traction for scrutiny against Dan Mullen right now. I 100% agree with that, but maybe not as much as he's getting because he has done some good things here at the University of Florida. But really, let's get right into it. The bad things about Dan Mullen. We always seem to come up short in a certain way. He came in in 2018, and let's look at our record then. I think we were pretty good in his first year. 2018 here, we were 10-3, 11-2, and 8-4, and right now we're sitting at 3-2. But this year was a Kentucky game. I mean, we lost to Alabama. It was a great game. So this year we came up short in a Kentucky game. Last year we came up short in a game against Texas A&M that we should not have lost. The year before we come up short, and the year before that we come up short against Kentucky. Dan Mullen also responsible for that, if you will. He was the head coach then. So if you look at the Gators, have only lost to Kentucky twice in the last 40-something years or 30-something years. We'll call it 40 years. Twice in the last 40 years, both under Coach Dan Mullen. Once, I think actually there were twice, both in Kentucky. But anyway, the two losses the Gators have in the last 4 decades was under Dan Mullen. So my point is, throughout his coaching career, yes, he's been great. Yes, he's gotten the Gators on the map, or kept the Gators on the map. But there's always seems to be a shortcoming, and you can't help but blame the coaching staff. I mean, this is a separate topic, but both coordinators have faced some scrutiny as well. Todd Grantham, not a lot of people like, and our offensive coordinator, also not a lot of people really on his side. So coaching staff as a whole is an issue for the Gators right now. But let's look at the interview itself from Dan Mullen. He says here, so of course the Gators lost 20-13, and it's only the first win at home over the Gators since 1986. You see that right here. So the first loss was in the swamp that Dan Mullen suffered to the Wildcats, and then this one was of course in Lexington. But here's what Dan Mullen said here, right by my cursor. He said, when asked about whether or not he was out-coached, he said, no, 382 yards, I guess that's sputtering. It was what he said. We had 382. They had 211. So really what he's doing right there in that sentence is, how could I have been out-coached? I'm the better coach. We put up more yards than them. And people's reactions, I'm about to go through some of the tweets that people put out, are honestly, they're kind of funny, but they're harsh and they're true. So, I mean, you see this guy says, how about this one? We had 13, they had 20. Last 4 decades, the only coach to lose to Kentucky. The penalties, all of this stuff is 100% pinnable on Dan Mullen. Of course, the fact that we had more yards, who cares about that? I mean, that was his argument of were you out-coached by Stoops? No, we had more yards. That's BS. Who cares how many yards you put up? Obviously, they played more efficient football. The penalties you can pin on a head coach, because when you're going into an away team stadium, you know crowd noise is going to be a factor. They sold out that stadium easily, just like we did when Bama came here. This was their Bama coming to the swamp for them was Florida coming to Lexington. So they were hyped, and we just looked unprepared. We looked like we couldn't hear the quarterback. That's why we were jumping off sides. Maybe that's the factor. But you can't help but blame Dan Mullen for not having his team more prepared. So a lot of this stuff pins on Dan Mullen, and I mentioned this earlier that the Gators always find a way to come up short. Last year was A&M. This year was Kentucky. At what point do we realize, or do we begin to think about whether or not Dan Mullen is the issue? And evidently last night was the event that put all this pressure on him take some blame and fix this team. So back to my point at the beginning of the video, is it time to move on from Dan Mullen? No, it's not. Right now, like I said, we're 3-2, and there's still time for him to realize that his game plan is not working. The amount of designed runs, Emory Jones up the middle last night, was totally a waste of time. It was unproductive. Josh Pascal, like I mentioned in the other video, of the Kentucky's front line was literally eating Emory Jones alive on every play. He runs off tackle, he runs with the middle, he runs off the other tackle. Pascal was there making the play. He blocked the field goal. He had several tackles for losses. Yet Dan Mullen continued to have plays run up the middle with Emory Jones that were not working. And again, the biggest play calling error of last night was the way our offense ran at the end of the first half when we had 2.5 minutes to score. We played soft, we ran the football, and we ran out the clock when we had a chance to try to go up 2 scores going into the second half. What happens? We don't. We put up only 3 points second half. They put up 13, and they win the game. So a lot of issues play calling wise. In all honesty, if you watch the game to the end, which I'm sure you guys did, it was a great game, or close. It was at least a close game. The way we ran the way we ran our offense on our final drive of the game was how we needed to run the whole game. We were throwing the football, and we got down the field in plenty of time. We got inside the 10-yard line within about a minute. But then Kentucky's 10. We drove down the field in about a minute. But then what did we do? We had a face mask penalty gifted to us. Then we had a false start. Then we had a false start again. And we were just killing ourselves with penalties, which, who can you blame that on? Back. I mean, of course, the players are not off the hook. Emory Jones didn't look great. Our offensive line is ultimately responsible for jumping for false starting or not. But you got to pin this on the head coach. He is the leader of this program. And if anything goes wrong, it's got to be pinned on him. That's what he took this job for. We're paying him $37 million. He's got to be sharper than attack. You look at Alabama, Nick Saban, this doesn't happen. You look at Georgia this year, Kirby Smart, this does not happen. And to say, yes, Nick Saban is the greatest college football coach ever, but to say that Florida shouldn't have the same quality head coach that Alabama does is untrue. Florida is a top Division I football school. Why they're not having the best coach in college football? Like I said, Nick Saban is in his own class, but we should have a guy that can discipline his players just as well as Nick Saban can, and that is what Dan Mullen needs to step up and do. So right now, yes, his play calling is the main issue with this team, and it is tough because we have. I didn't even talk about Anthony Richardson yet. He needs to see the field more. Dan Mullen spoke out after week 2 against USF why Anthony Richardson has not been playing a whole lot, and his answer was he's a freshman, and I want to make sure he can make the right play before we put him into big spots. Yes, he's obviously capable of making the talented play, but Dan Mullen's issue was, can he make the smart play? Can he take care of the football? But in a game where Emory Jones is having no success running, and mind you, he ran for 68, 70 yards, but that was on a lot of carries. My point is, Anthony Richardson needs to see the field more because he is an electric playmaker that when our offense gets stale, like it was almost all of last night, he's going to be the guy, or could be the guy, to come in and make the huge play. Dan Mullen is just not giving him a chance, which is ridiculous. So it's time to change that. It's time to throw the football more. And like I said, Dan Mullen is in a tough spot because he has 2 quarterbacks in Emory Jones and Anthony Richardson that are very similar players. That it's not like Trask and Emory Jones last year, where when we need to throw the ball well, you put in Trask. When we want to run a run-pass option, you go with Emory Jones. You have a running quarterback, you have a passing quarterback. This year, you have 2 guys that are identical in play styles. Can throw the ball, but not that well, but can run pretty well. So it is tough for Dan Mullen because he doesn't have a one play style quarterback versus another. He has 2 quarterbacks to do the same thing, but Dan Mullen needs to draw up better plays. This is a Kentucky team that put up 2/3 of the yards that we did. They come out on top because our play calling, our play style was not good enough. So all in all, that's all I have to say. Dan Mullen needs to fix what he's doing. But back to the question today, to bluntly answer the question, no, the Gators don't need to be in any rush to move off of Dan Mullen. I think he's capable of changing. I think this loss and this press conference altogether is going to make him realize he needs to change. But I need to see Dan Mullen taking some of the blame because last night he made it seem as if he did everything right and his players were the problem. But who's responsible for those players? Dan Mullen, it's you. You have to make your team better. That's all I have to say about this, guys. Thanks for watching. 2-minute warning.